Welcome to Comics Bazaar, the channel of comics commentary and arcana. This video features Generation Next #1, cover dated March 1995. And this, of course, is the Age of Apocalypse version of Generation X, a book which had only launched 4 months previously, involving all new character designs, a whole new X team, and here it is, all reconfigured with new designs, new characters by the same creative team, Scott Lobdell and Chris Bachalo. So a lot of work going into this book from that particular creative team, especially Bachalo. And this is an excellent cover. It's quite busy, but it definitely rewards close attention. And what I always enjoyed about Bachalo's covers was the design feature of the checker flag behind the title logo there as well. Always distinctive Bachalo's Generation X and now Generation Next covers in that regard. And also too, you get little kind of funny things like the inclusion of the tortoise here. That tortoise makes an appearance in pretty much every one of Bachalo's issues. And I like the combined name of the art team, Crookie here, and the ladybird. Also a lot of ladybirds there in Bachalo's artwork too. So, looking at this cover, there's a few recognizable characters, Colossus here, Magneto up here, but everyone else is a little bit of a mystery. Mondo as well, who had only appeared once in the regular title, but everyone else is a little bit mysterious, and we'll have to go into the issue itself to figure out who different characters are, especially this guy here, who's an entirely new character. So let's open it up to the splash page. And we start with the first person narration of Jonathan Starsmore. So this is the Age of Apocalypse reality version of Chamber. And what's distinctive is that half of the bottom of his face has not been blown off. So he's had a different backstory in this reality. There's that tortoise again. And something's going on. He's under attack. So what could be going on in this particular scenario? Well, let's get to the credits page here. Very cool double page spread. And we get to see Chambers' costume in more detail here. And we can see that his psionic force is issuing from his chest and out of this contraption that seems to control its direction and trajectory. And as I said, like very different from the regular version of Chamber, where half his face is blown off because of an accidental and uncontrolled eruption of his power as a teenager. So the title of the story is From the Top, and the creative team is Chris Bachalo and Scott Lobdell. Interesting, the reversal there of the usual order of credits. So Lobdell may be recognizing here the amount of work that Bachalo's been putting in with all of these characters designs in less than 6 months. Inker Mark Buckingham, colors Steve Buccellato with electric crayon, that's the digital coloring, lettering Richard Starkings, and Comicraft, so digital lettering as well. Now, I do have a little bit of a complaint about the coloring here. I do like Steve Buccellato's colors generally, but there's something about this particular issue where the coloring is a little bit on the dark, oversaturated side, and it makes it, in a few cases, a little bit difficult to read what's going on in the artwork. So here Starsmore is reflecting on his psionic power, and he's being attacked here by a mace, but who's wielding it? Let's continue with the issue. So this little contraption pops up out of the ground, and Starsmore addresses it and says, "You're actually going to watch, eh? What's the special occasion?" So who is this that appeared on the cover? It looks like Monet, but we'll get an identity for this person later on in the issue. So then Chambers grabbed from behind, yanked onto the ground, and somebody says, "Consider yourself distracted, dumpling." Who could it be? Well, it turns out to be Paige Guthrie. So this is the Age of Apocalypse version of Husk, and she's got this red brunette hair and a completely different costume, of course. And we're going to learn that she has a slightly different character. She's more confident in this reality, as is Chamber himself as well, which could have something to do with the fact that he retains his face. And there's a little bit of a kind of a romantic relationship between the pair. And it is Paige Guthrie who is the one that is, what would we say, actively pursuing it. So she's there kissing him, and then they're interrupted by Mondo, who's speaking of himself in the third person. Mondo's sick of risking Mondo's life while you two suck face. Great digital lettering there from Richard Starkings and his team, and that's a cool anchor image. And of course, Bachalo and Buckingham have a very particular way of rendering Mondo that really evokes his Earth-like kind of terrestrial type body, and it's really nicely done there as well. But again, the colouring just a bit on the dark side makes it a little bit hard to read, but it works. So let's continue with the story. Get past these ads. And what happens is that Chamber blasts Mondo with his psionic power. So Mondo hates psionic energy. And this is interesting. So Paige here refers to herself as an omnimorph. Now what that would mean is that she can shape herself, turn herself into anything, and she does it in the fashion that she does in the regular reality, tearing off her skin, sloughing off one layer of skin, but underneath it reveals this blade that she has turned herself into, and she threatens to cut Mondo's throat when there's a ping noise. And Paige says, "Did you all hear that?" And Mondo says, "Sounded like an egg timer." And there's this shadow falling on the trio. And Chamber says, "The good news, fellas, is that we all survived the 3-minute mark." So there's a training going on. The bad news, Tavarish, and here we go. Great anchor image of the Age of Apocalypse version of Colossus. And he looks like a much bulkier figure maybe than in the regular reality, and a different costume as well, of course, but with some of the same color combinations, the red and yellow. And so he completely crushes Mondo there, and that's very comical, that version of Mondo with the bump on his head as well. And we get a little bit about Colossus's history in this Age of Apocalypse reality. So there's no more Russia anymore. Back when there was, he and his brother Mikhail were Russia's greatest heroes. But then Mikhail Rasputin became a horseman of Apocalypse. And Peter then made his way to America after the horror started, the Cullings, in North America, and offered his services to Magneto. So Chamber continues saying, "Mind you though, he seems content to keep us trainees at a constant boil. It's pretty obvious to everyone involved. This is not a happy person." So of course, in the regular reality under Professor X's tutelage, Peter Rasputin was a happy person, and Claremont always wanted to give Colossus a happy ending, moving him away from the X-Men into the life of an artist. But this version of Peter Rasputin is a very different beast entirely because of the different world history, the grim Age of Apocalypse. And this training session is not a game of tag, as would have been the case with Banshee and Emma Frost in the regular reality. Instead, this is to the death. So Colossus here, disappointed with the performance of the trainees. He says to Chamber, "I believe you are weak, that you are sentimental, that you and the rest of these children with whom I've been squandering my time think you can simply wish for a better world and that it will somehow magically appear. I think you're dreamers, and it falls on me to provide a wake-up call," as he gets ready to pummel him. But then Husk emerges. That's another great anchor image here. I would say Bachalo was enjoying himself drawing this, despite the extra work of the new designs and all the rest of it. I'd say it was some fun for him with these really cool visuals. So we get the explanation from Chambers' first-person narration that Husk has turned into some kind of acid. She's morphed into an acid that she's pouring on Colossus's techno-organic body, and she isn't holding back. But then this is a really fun little panel where this face emerges from Colossus's back and surprises Husk. And who could this be? So Husk says that ain't hardly that she's just getting warmed up. And this person says, that's a matter of perspective, Hayseed. From where I stand, let's turn the page, see who it is. You're a memory. And that's a nice little image there as well. That's something, I wonder, did Bachalo pick up on that from the likes of Jim Lee? Jim Lee was doing that kind of inverse silhouetting in Wildcats around this time. He's doing it here. It's kind of bookending the double page spread here. First panel here and last panel over here. That's interesting. That's an interesting design. So the anchor image is, it turns out, it's Kitty Pryde. It's Shadowcat. And aligned with her name in Bachalo's design, she has these Wolverine-like but cat's claws. 3 of them emerging from these holders on her wrists. And this version of Kitty Pryde has a darker edge, much darker edge than the regular Realities one. So she uses those claws absolutely brutally on Husk, even to Mondo's shock and surprise, slashes the skin right off her. That's a great panel there as well. And Kitty looks like she's enjoying herself too. Is that concern for your teammate? She mocks Husk. You kids are so gosh darn cute. Please don't do me any favors, says Husk as she's ripping again the skin on one of her arms and revealing this blade. Just finish me off. But she's thinking to her, this is funny. This is good by Lobdell. She's thinking he. This is kind of like there's a little bit of a Looney Tunes element to this, even though it's to the death that they're training. There is still that comical dimension to things. And so you get this strange balance of tones in the issue, but I like it. So Kitty's coming up on her and tells her to hold still, and then she swings around. Loser, now die, die, die. And of course, Kitty's power is to phase. And so she says to Paige there, you megamorphs are so overconfident. Though it might have worked against someone who wasn't intangible most of the time. She kicks her right in the jaw. Yeah, that's a great spread of pages there. Really great work by writer and artist. And then we switch back to Colossus, whose attention has been caught by what was going on behind him, which Chamber uses to his advantage, blasts a tree behind Colossus, which falls right on top of him. And so Chamber rolled clear just in the nick of time, but he's checking on Paige, and Shadowcat's got the better of Paige now, getting ready to stick those claws right in her skull. And she says here, you think the Sentinels are going to go easy on you, or the flat scans, or the bad seeds? I'm only doing this for your own good. And then she is caught by these wrapping ribbon tendrils that restrain her, and she, because she can't catch her breath, is unable to phase herself. So that's a interesting note or nod to a weakness of hers. And so who or what could this be? Well, it turns out that it is the Age of Apocalypse version of Skin. And this is a nice page as well, with Bachalo illustrating this different version of Skin and the use of his powers. But Shadowcat seems to get the better of him. just for the moment, and here we get a good look at him. But he's mostly in shadow, and he looks much more menacing and maniacal. It looks almost, he's got shades of Nightcrawler about him in the posing there. But I really like the way that Bachalo has drawn his grin there and the teeth. That's nicely done. It looks well. So Husk sneaks up on the pair and uses her omnimorph power again to attack Shadowcat, but takes skin out into the bargain as well. And then up pops this character and time's up. So Chambers says here that everybody, another session, we're all still alive, anybody for a pint of, but Colossus just slams him out of the way. He's concerned about Katja, Shadowcat. Now we'll learn later on that these two are married in this reality, which is interesting. And then we have this new character, Vicente, and his power is he doesn't have a body, and in this case he's manifesting as a cloud of earth, it seems. But this character is insistent excuse me, that the training session is over. And again, as I said earlier, it looks like M, but what will the character be called? As we continue with the story, we'll find out, get past the ads. And here we go. This is another great page. So a great anchor image here in the center of this page of Magneto. And Bachalo and Buckingham's version of Magneto is much more menacing, more imposing than the version that we see Madureira's version, let's say, for example, in Astonishing X-Men. And it kind of suits the perspective of the New Mutants, the Generation Nexts in training. For most of them, as Chambers' first-person narration makes plain, this is the first time they've ever seen him. And they're in awe of him, including Shadowcat 2, who obeys him immediately when he demands that everybody stop because he wants a word with Colossus and Shadowcat. And so then we get this establishing shot of where the students live and their base. And it's known as the Tomb, the oldest standing structure in the Rockies, survived a dozen bombings or more, our base. And this is based on a real 19th century castle in the Rocky Mountains, Colorado, Glen Erie. So it's not exactly photographically the same, but it's kind of a nod to a real 19th century castle that exists in those mountains. Yeah, great page here. Great use of the digital coloring and effects in the background. You know, not quite a full moon there. It is a crescent moon, so that's original. I'll give the artists some respect for that one rather than yet another full moon. And here we have Magneto berating Shadowcat and Colossus in particular in terms of the way that they've been handling the students. The students are meant to be ready to move on his word. And Colossus says, as we said they would be, with all due respect, Magnus, will not have you barge in here and undermine my authority in front of the students. And Magneto turns around and says, your authority, Peter? And I like the way that Bachalo and Buckingham are rendering Magneto's eyes under the deep silhouette within the mask, just these white points. So he looks incredibly intense. It's really well done, in my opinion. So then Magneto gets to the point here about Bishop, who of course we see him encountering him in X-Men Alpha and in the first couple of issues of Astonishing X-Men. And Bishop's the sole survivor from the reality that was overwritten by Legion killing Professor X 20 years in the past. So Magneto talks a little bit about all of that and how he's determined to figure out whether Bishop is genuine or not in terms of his account of an alternative, better reality in which Apocalypse never rose up. And we learn here that Apocalypse took steps to ensure that no one would interfere with his ascension, time travelers in particular. So Kitty makes the point that Apocalypse had all chromo-variant mutants killed, specifically to prevent time travel. So Magneto says here, all known CVs, yes. And this character says, but there are those who've yet to manifest their abilities, and therein may be our hope. So the next generation of mutants could prove salvation. And now we learn the name of this character, Know-It-All. And that's funny because that's how Monet presents herself in the regular reality, Generation X reality, as a know-it-all. So is this Monet? Well, I did a little investigating, and during Age of Apocalypse, in the letters columns, the editors said that this wasn't Monet, that it was a different character. But then later on, they went back on that and said, yeah, no, it was Monet. It was the Age of Apocalypse version of Monet. So let's say it's Monet Saint Croix, and somehow or other she's linked up with this kind of computer tech. So she's part human, part computer. And she follows Magneto's order here to infiltrate Apocalypse's databanks and search for any mutants that might have survived and that might have chrono-variant powers. So off she goes. And Colossus is worried. He thinks it's dangerous, that it might that the Shadow King might discover Know-It-All sci surfing online. And the Shadow King has been referenced in the first issue of Amazing X-Men. So he's part of Apocalypse's team, and he seems to be involved in Apocalypse's cybersecurity here. And also interesting is this little character bit where Kitty Pryde in the Age of Apocalypse reality is a smoker. And that's funny because Kitty often gave Wolverine Logan grief for his smoking, and here she is a smoker in this darker reality herself. And so we go through the databank here, different mutants who are dead or never even had an identity. And then finally they get to a positive hit, and it shocks Colossus. And so who could it be? By the way, just before I turn the page, I really like the designy rendering of the smoke from Kitty's cigarette here. These swirls, these concentric swirls by Bachalo and Buckingham. It's one of those features of Bachalo's art where he's got an eye on this kind of designy symbolism in the way that he draws. And I like it. It's fun. So last page, and it turns out that someone Colossus thought was dead is not, and it's Illyana. It's his little sister Illyana. So Know-It-All gives us the data. Erroneously reported killed at the site of the Kiev slaughter. Finding too young to be of any use. Possibility of mutant manifestation infinitesimal. Currently resident, quote unquote, of Core Portland. Likelihood of rescue 0.000%, so no chance of rescue. So of course, what's the rest of Generation Next going to be about except finding and rescuing Illyana Rasputin, so that Magneto might have in his back pocket someone with chrono-variant powers, if they could only be made manifest. So next issue, like magic, into the heart of the slave pits. And this is a nice little image here of these bones and decomposed bodies here. Excellent. Really, really great work by Lobdell, Bachalo, and Buckingham. And as I said, I like Buchalato's colors, but a little bit on the dark side for some reason in this particular issue. So I do hope that you enjoyed this review and commentary on Generation Next #1. If you did, please like the video on YouTube. If you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for more content like this.